You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 106. Exciting day. It's June 9th, 2026. God bless the USA. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia, and this is Kendra Santos, and this is No Spin Rodeo. Good morning, Kendra. How's it hanging?
Not something you usually ask a young lady, but okay.
I meant earrings. I meant the earrings.
All good. Everything's great, actually. And
cool.
As always, I listen to Tallman say two of the most trusted sources in our sport. It's because we know the ultimate sources on every subject, and today's no exception. So I'm very, very excited personally and professionally for today's guest.
It is going to be good. I'm in the middle of Wyoming, so hopefully my cell service works. Going up for a birthday party for a friend of mine, Kurt Blake. Some people know Kurt, so that's where I'm at. But I am also very timely episode. Very good information. Let's not waste any time. Will you introduce our guest, please, ma'am?
I would be proud to. I perhaps the talk in the roping and rodeo horse industry right now is about the threat of the screwworm. And a couple nights ago, it was on the national news because they're, of findings in Texas now, but Miguel Guerrero, I don't know of anybody who has any more skin in the game, and I don't know of anyone who is more all in on the inside of the storm. And so as a point of background, Las Tunas Ranch is a beautiful place, but Miguel, there's Las Tunas Cattle Company, Las Tunas Performance Horses, Old West Las Tunas Cattle Company. I know that Miguel recently experienced his first rancheros ride here on the Central Coast of California, where I'm from. And I'm guessing that his 500 Novios tequila perhaps was flowing. I don't know, just a guess, but the Old West fraternity is coming up right around the corner in Heber City, Utah. And I know Miguel's a good judge of character because one of his partners in all of this is Ren Richard, the NFR team roper and calf roper, and a great human being. And so I just, with the headlines, mainstream headlines speaking about, this scare, and anyone who's on social media is seeing, top 15 barrel racers making pleas for the possibility of horses that they can jump ride in Calgary if in case of the border situation. Miguel Guerrero, welcome, because there's no one else I'd rather talk to right now. I'm missing my dad, my veterinarian father, extra right now because he had a way of, he knew all the facts and he had a lifetime of experience, ranching and rodeo, and he could put it in terms that were really easy to understand, and it was very calming. And so welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kendra, and thank you, Tommy Joe. It's a real honor to be here with you guys and try to share a little bit of our experience and get to talk to you guys a little bit of everything that's going on.
Now, where are you at? Are you in Chihuahua?
I am in Chihuahua, Tommy Joe. This is where we have our corporate offices. We run a couple of companies that we own here in Mexico, and the ranch is only 2 hours away from here. And we administrate the ranch from here. All the administration offices right here, and the operations are over at Las Tunas, right there at the ranch. So, we go every 2 days to the ranch just to take care of business over there. And this is where we have our corporate offices here in Chihuahua, Mexico.
That sounds cool.
I commend Miguel so much for I don't know anyone who is more comfortable with a suit and tie in a boardroom or out in the saddle with a rope in his hand on the ranch. So multiple hats, very comfortable, very, very smart, and hardworking in all aspects. So we're here to talk about the screwworm, and I think for starters, it would be very helpful. I've done a lot of reading on this for a while now, and I feel like a lot of people feel like it's misnamed because they're like, well, this isn't actually really a worm. So can you tell people what a screwworm is, Miguel?
Well, definitely. I mean, this worm survives by eating, flesh from animals, from, warm blood animals, and usually travels through flies. So that's why it's so important right now to have that sterile fly, dispersed all over. But they closed those plants a while ago, and now that the disease is here, so it's very difficult to get it up and running in such a short time. So we really depend on those sterile male flies to eradicate the screwworm, just like it was done, back in the days. Gotta say that this screwworm has affected the markets, in Mexico very, very hard. As you know, we have been doing business with the U.S. by crossing live cattle for the last 120 years. So this disease really, really is affecting, economically, a lot of families, a lot of ranchers that depend on this Mexican cattle to survive. That's a reality. That's a reality. And unfortunately, now the screwworm is in the U.S., which is very unfortunate. But at the very end, it didn't cross through cattle. Either it was flying, or it was in wildlife, or it was in humans. But at the very end, it's already there, and it was not through Mexican cattle. And one thing that I've been, pushing a lot is to stick to the protocol that the USDA, APHIS, and Senacica, and the Mexican authorities, all together, they came out with this very, very strict protocol in order to be able to cross cattle to the U.S. or horses. And if we stick to that protocol, I can honestly tell you that's going to be the safest cattle that we will have in the U.S. Why? Because that cattle is checked, inspected one by one by all the authorities, and once it crosses, we know that cattle or those horses are going to be 100% sound and healthy, and that's going to be, I think, and I really urge the authorities to do something about it, because there's no reason to keep on harming the economy. At the very end, the prices of beef and inflation is through the roof. And the only way to really mitigate that is by crossing that cattle and being able to to come up with a lot of more beef instead of importing beef from other countries. Why? Because let's say that we import 100,000 tons of beef from Argentina. That beef at the very end is gonna be beef for hamburgers. It's not gonna be the beef that high quality cuts, but it's only 100,000 pounds. Right now we have around 1.5 million head of cattle right here that is ready to cross. Let's say that the state of Chihuahua and the state of Sonora has been free of screwworm since the beginning. There's no screwworm here. So if that cattle crosses, that cattle is going to add 2/3 of its value in the U.S. It's going to eat American corn. It's going to give American jobs. It's going to, get those plants back up and running again. And that's going to be definitely creating a lot of wealth, a lot of jobs. And that's also going to bring around 300,000 tons of beef, high quality beef. So the comparison is just, it doesn't make any sense. So
for those who don't understand, I would love to back up just a moment. Like my understanding is that since April of 2025, the border has been closed between Mexico and America. My understanding for cattle, and also, is it also closed to horses? Is that right?
It's close to horses. It's horses, cattle, and bison. So all three are
okay.
closed.
So as far as and on the cattle front, if I'm correct about this, some of the last cattle crossed for us in the roping and rodeo industry were cattle that you steered, roping cattle that you crossed that were used at the Old West Futurity in Heber City, Utah, right?
Last year.
So now with the border having been closed, there's also a little, I mean, since we're a rodeo podcast, the lack of cattle, the lack of roping and bulldogging steers, and Tommy Joe being a rodeo producer, and me representing cowboys to my core, this is hurting everyone. And
everybody.
So, and you, I think also, a matter of fact, have had 2,200 head of fresh steers ready to rope and bulldog that you can't get over here to help the rodeo industry, right?
Absolutely. You know, and that's where I was going. Let's say that we don't mess with the beef industry because we understand that it's a very difficult subject and there's a lot of technicalities there. But our rodeo industry, it's really struggling right now without the right cattle. And we've been seeing that in many ropings, in many events. And that's something that I've been pushing for. It's how do we, use those strict protocols in order to be able to cross cattle and horses for sports purposes only. And we're talking that that would put the protocols and the borders to a test, and the authorities as well, to see where the things that they need to to operate and to work together in order for a broader and bigger beef industry cattle crossing at some point. But if we open for rodeo industry and for sports purposes, this is going to be a game changer in our industry. I mean, it's no secret that, there's some good native cattle. There's nothing against that. But we know as team ropers that there's nothing better to rope than the M brands. And those M brands are only bred in the state of Chihuahua. They're not bred in any other state of Mexico, because that's a very local breed that we have here in the state. And this local breed lives high in the mountains. And it's, dispersed all over the Sierras here in the state of Chihuahua. And in order to get our hands in 10,000 steers, it's a big, big deal. And right now, unfortunately, my friends, that cattle, we say here in Chihuahua that is about to go extinct, because last year we had pretty good rain, but the 3 years before that, we only had 5 inches of rain in 3 years. So you can only imagine how tough that drought was. And a lot of people couldn't bear it because, like I told you, this cattle is owned, but this, very humble and poor families that they only own 2, 3, 10 cows, and we go get 5 from this guy's, 10 from the other. So we have buyers all over the Sierras that are gathering this cattle, but a lot of people couldn't support the drought, and they had to sell all the mama cows that they had. The very few that they had, they sold them for national consumption. Bulls, there's a lack of bulls all over here in the beef industry, and also in the cattle industry, so in the rodeo industry. So what I'm trying to say is that if we get our hands in around 12,000, 14,000 head of cattle total for roping right now, that's a lot. So some of the smaller outfits have gone out of business, in part because of the drought, and is it also in part because of the border being closed? the border being closed. I mean, at the very end, they depended on that, and so if no one was buying, so they had to sell for national consumption, and now there's no mama cows. And so the rodeo cattle, it's a very valuable asset that we have here in Chihuahua, and that's why we decided at Las Tunas to preserve that brand. We're betting a lot, on the mama cows, and we're trying to help all these people in the high mountains to keep on producing. And if we can help them by, keeping their heifers, to increase that herd, that for us, that would be perfect. So we're trying to help them out as much as we can, because at the very end, we are truly involved in the rodeo industry, and we wanted to keep on being competitive. And it's very sad when you see, all this incredible venues, great productions, the best ropers in the world, with that cattle. So
right.
And that's what
I think a very important point to make here would be, I know that there are people who think, oh, well, let's just bring those genetics over here and we don't need Mexico. But there's an environmental factor to the best roping cattle that have ever been. That environmental factor and that tough terrain there is an actual, it's a big deal. It's a big part of why those cattle are as good as they are, right?
Oh, absolutely. They're high in the mountains. They're almost 8,000 feet high. And, they suffer all kinds of weather, and by the time that we get our hands into those steers, those are the survivors. Many die.
They're tough.
So they become very tough. And that's why those steers can go on and on and on. And, they can last for years because they're really survivors. If you take those genetics and you try to breed them in a pasture, it's not going to happen.
Okay, Miguel and Kendra, I want to take a quick step back because I think this is fascinating. But for a lot of our audience, when we see this stuff on social media, and let's you guys correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm gonna kind of do a little biology lesson on the screwworm, and if I'm wrong, you guys correct me. So it's called the New World Screwworm. It's actually not New World. It started in the 50s and they eradicated it in the 60s, and we'll get to that in a second. But what it is it's not really a worm. It looks like a worm in a screw shape because it bores itself into living, warm-blooded flesh. And it's actually the larva of the flies. And so if there's an open wound on cattle, but listen to this. If there's an open wound on wild hogs, if there's an open wound on your dogs, if there's an open wound on your horse, if there's an open wound on any warm-blooded animal, a carrying fly will, on humans, I don't know that there's that many cases because we don't want everybody to start thinking every time they itch, they got a screwworm. But anyway, these flies land on open tissue, sometimes in the corners of eyes, but open tissue. They lay their eggs, and the larvae, once they hatch, they start feeding on the flesh. And then when that larvae falls out, it gets into the ground and more flies are produced. And so that's what a screwworm is. It literally eats. So that says that if you're paying attention as a rancher or a farmer or a pet owner, that when you see a wound that's not healing, you should be concerned, right? Or if any of your animals have open wounds, those are susceptible to that fly laying eggs on there and creating the larva. Now, again, I'm going to do some stuff because I think it's phenomenal real quick, and then we'll dive back into the overall conversation. I think it's phenomenal about the sterile flies. What does that mean? Well, at first I thought it meant these flies go out and kill these other flies. No, they basically put M-branded flies, steers, right, out in the world that can't reproduce. And
exactly right.
The female flies think they're whoopie's going somewhere and it's not. Next thing you know, they're dead. And this allows for a slow eradication. And it's not as fast as you think. Now, they had it all taken care of. And you might have missed this earlier, listeners, but Miguel said they stopped the producing plants. Well, by the way, they're cranking them back up again. This is the plants that are producing the sterile flies to kick out there and to hook up with the infected females and not spread the species, right? So that's the sterile flies. So it slowly takes care of itself. Now, there are some differences in now, and again, Miguel, you stop me. Here's another big problem. We're focusing there. I think what Miguel's saying, they're focusing on the Chihuahua cattle. That's not really the issue now. And when you start to loop in the beef side of the game, we're dealing with BS politics and a lot of not good, smart thinking on the beef side. That's a whole nother podcast. But on these competitive cattle, like Miguel said, these cattle aren't. They may be a host, but the real problem, as we're seeing now, and we'll see it when we read the history books, is 15 million wild hogs now. It wiped out the white-tailed deer herd in the 50s. And if you look at it, it's not moving up slow like it would naturally. It's jumping. Yeah. So someone buys a goat in South Mexico and drives it to North Mexico. Or, as we're hearing, someone goes to Mexico with their dog, comes back to the U.S. with it. That dog has a wound. It gets larvae, comes back to the U.S. potentially. So it's not just the cattle that are hosts. And I think that's why Miguel's, what he's saying is, and so if you back up, he said, well, let's just have them inspected. So you can. Correct me if I'm wrong, Miguel. You run an animal in the chute. You look at him. He has no wounds. He's healthy. He's got no larvae on him and no wounds. He's safe, right? He's safe.
That's right. And we bathe them twice, before they cross. So they're safe, and they're inspected not only by the Mexican authorities. They're inspected by the U.S. authorities as well, in the port of entries that we have here in the state, which only in the port of entry of Santa Teresa, we cross, over 70,000, 80,000 head of cattle a year. So that's only through that port. But we also have another port, which is in Presidio, Texas, and another one in Palomas, that it's already in New Mexico. But yeah, it's fair to say that the authorities have worked on this protocol, that it's almost, 95% certainty that nothing's going to cross infected once they cross through that port, because they are inspected twice, they are vetted twice. So once they cross the U.S., that's the safest cattle that we're going to have right now, because we know for a fact that there's nothing wrong with them.
Well, and it seems stupid to me that they're holding the cattle. That would be like parking all the buses because you're worried about a criminal that's on them, because the criminal's actually the flies, right? And so The approach seems crazy to me, that if an animal's healthy, right, and inspected on both sides of the border, so there's two sets of eyes, that this is just stupid. This is pretty much stupid. Right? Really, it's just stupid.
Why keep on hurting the economy? Why?
Yeah, we're hurting. Our timed event cattle at the Days of 47 are going to cost double. You know that. If you put on a rope and you put on everything, it costs double because they're not out there. You've got a ton of them that just are waiting to come over, and stupid people are making stupid decisions. And now this is going to cross the border. I always wondered, how do they think they're going to stop the flies from crossing the border if the flies are infected? By keeping the cattle, right? It's just none of it makes any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And you know what? That's what we've been pushing for. And we've traveled to Washington several times to have these conversations with them, for them to focus on the technicalities, focus on the technical part of things and leave the politics aside, because this has become a very political thing that now it almost gives me the impression that now they know what to do, but they know that there's a political cost for doing it, and they just don't want to do it. So
yeah, it's just stupid. Is this a little bit thrown out of proportion? I'm asking, right? Because with social media, things like this get blown up. And by the way, PETA and a lot of the people that are against our industry will create bots that will go out there and spread the word that, oh my God, don't take your horse anywhere. He's going to die of screwworm. Oh my God, don't go to a roping. You'll get screwworm. They do that. Like that's a way they are attacking us. And so my question is, from your perspective, because you own $1 million horses and ranches, and this is your lifestyle, is this blown out of proportion, in your opinion?
Tommy Joe, that's a great question, and I'm going to try to answer it, direct with as it is, and it's definitely been taken out of proportion. It's very difficult for us as breeders, as cattlemen, as people that have worked for many years by developing the best genetics out there, not only for the rodeo industry but also for the beef industry. And it's very sad to see all those comments, on social media that without any fundamental, basis, they keep on saying, keep your cattle in Mexico. We don't need that cattle, this and that. And you're like, come on. I mean, it's just ignorance. But at the same time, it makes me think, Tommy Joe, that this is our authorities' fault, because they have not come out with a right communication strategy for this issue. So this is definitely a communication problem that they've had for long, and now it's just being taken out of proportion. And like I said, I'm pretty sure they know what to do and what's the right thing to do, which is, allowing that cattle to cross and continue on the economy as it is, because, well, there you have it. I mean, they just don't know how to make it right anymore. And why?
Well, or someone's lining their pockets, right? Or someone's lining their pockets, or politics, or all the BS that goes in.
It's only benefiting a few, but it's affecting all the consumers, everybody.
Now, did I hear you right? Did you say there are no screwworms in Chihuahua? Did you say that?
0 screwworms in Chihuahua, 0. Since this started,
did you hear that?
0 screwworms in the state of Chihuahua and 0 screwworm in the state of Sonora, which are the largest producing states for beef cattle and for rodeo cattle in Mexico. And we're the border with Texas and Arizona.
One thing we could confirm, a bottom line here, is that the current outbreak in Texas had exactly 0 to do with crossing roping cattle to make roping and rodeo better here, correct?
0 to do with roping cattle or horses. How it got there, it came in flying, the flies got in, or it came in with through wildlife, which is very difficult to control. But it didn't come in cattle.
Let's talk a little bit more about finances of the of cowboys, ropers or rodeo contestants, and also committees, Tommy Joe. Okay, so has the cattle charge roughly doubled? Is that about right?
It's hard to say that it doubled, but I mean, right before this started, you could get cattle for $1,600, $1,700 just before it started. Because remember what I said, that, the drought really hit the small producers. They got rid of all their mama cows, and now it's a matter of supply and demand. So the very few that are out there, well, they want to sell them a little higher, right? And let's say that we were selling cattle at $1,600. But right now, Kendra, there's people that are selling cattle at $3,000. So yeah, it doubled.
Well, and the people that have the cattle, I'm sorry, Kendra, the people that have the cattle that can rope. Let me say, when I say it doubles, I pay per run on a head of cattle. when I rent them, right? But you got to take into effect that diesel's now $5, right?
Yeah.
That breakfast costs $50 to eat breakfast now, and that the cattle themselves are higher, and there's not very many of them. So if you're a guy that has decent cattle available during my event, and you put in the price of diesel and all that, the cost for me to rent them, to use them, has doubled.
Right.
It's doubled.
Right.
Which, okay, from a cowboy's point of view, this is impacting a lot of formats of rodeos negatively if you're a cowboy.
Oh,
Sorry.
absolutely.
That's why they don't want to do slack, because you can't afford to pay for the cattle.
Well,
It just keeps getting more expensive and more expensive because there's no cattle to run.
it's hurting everyone is the bottom of it, and it's hurting the entire rodeo industry. And to me, this is this closure of this border is very negatively impacting all kind of aspects of rodeo, including a handy excuse to change formats that are not cowboy friendly.
In a lot of families, Kendra, let's leave aside only the rodeo part. I mean, it's affecting a lot of families that depend on this, and it's affecting a lot of economies. It's very sad, to be honest. And I know this is hard to say because, but I see a lot of families here that they just took their kids out of school. They just can't afford, good, health insurance. They just cannot travel anymore for leisure. So when you start seeing that, because they depend on cattle crossing, and this is happening, it's really sad because they're having to sell everything, for national consumption, rodeo cattle, beef cattle, everything to national consumption. And the prices here in Mexico are very, very bad. So they're not really making it.
On the price of the cattle and for the consumption, some of the actual roping cattle or steers that would be used for bulldogging by the same token, they have aged out or basically gotten too big to rope or bulldog, right? Mm-hmm. And so then they're put into the consumption side. But M-branded steers are not ideal for consumption, right? I mean, it takes a very long time. Talk about that.
Yeah, it takes long. You'll be surprised, Kendra, when I say that, we've noticed now that all those that get a little, bigger to use, and they get at the very end, they're no use either for roping or for bulldogging because they're extremely heavy. They're just big to use. And what we've done, we have our own feedlot at Las Tunas, and what we do is that we've been making this, tryouts, these experiments, and to take them all the way to 900, 1,000 pounds, and it's incredible that there's not a big difference between the beef cattle and the corriente cattle. I mean, when you put it into pound to pound, well, that definitely there's going to be a difference. But let's say in a day, one beef cattle can eat and grow up to 1.6 kilograms per day, and the corriente cattle is gonna be 1.3. So the difference is not that big. And to be honest, this is very, very healthy cattle, and if you've tasted the flavor of corriente cattle beef, it's incredibly good. It's the real it's the real taste of beef.
Now I'm looking at a Corriente standing there. And I'm thinking, Miguel, I think that when you butcher that, it's going to be more like beef jerky. But I hear, correct me if I'm wrong, that with those with longhorns and Corriente, you feed them and age them a little longer, and that meat will marble like an Angus. It's just a little older, right? A little bit older before they start marbling. Is that correct?
That is correct, but at the very end, I mean, you get very fine cuts. I mean, obviously smaller cuts. It's not that big cattle, but they're smaller cuts. But the flavor of that beef is fantastic. One of those pioneers that have been doing that business is definitely our friend Ty Yost. Ty Yost has his own meat, meat stores that he has right there, some restaurants at Wickenburg. And the other day I went there and I said, well, let me buy some fine cuts from Thai. My goodness, they were incredible. Really? And I've been speaking to a lot of people that are running feedlots over in the U.S., particularly to a couple of guys over in Oklahoma. And I said, guys, tell me how this beef is coming out. And they said, Miguel, we take that cattle anytime. You know, we love the taste of that beef, and it does take a little longer, but they get there. They get there for sure, and it's good beef. It's at the very end, it's very good beef and healthy beef as well.
So what do you think? What's going to happen? I know we don't have a glass ball here. They've got 4 cases documented that we don't. I mean, you don't even know what you can believe. But you know they're going to find screwworms over here. So do you think they'll get the flies out fast enough? Do we have it, or is it almost kind of like the Iran war? We don't really know. We just got to wait and see. Do you have what do you think is going to happen in the next 6 months with this, with where we're at from your perspective?
Well, I got to be honest with you, and I don't think that we're going to be able to eradicate this real quick. I mean, it's going to take us some years to really eradicate this because, like I said, we were simply not ready with the male sterile flies. We were just not ready. So this started coming up, and it's going to continue on going up. One of the best helps that we can get with this is cold weather. So unfortunately, right now, there's no cold weather. So this is going to keep on happening for a little while, and I think it's going to take him, some years to eradicate. But what we need to find out is ways to work around it. Is how do we continue on working together with our authorities on the private sector as well, doing everything that we need to do in order to do things right. And on our end, and it's no secret, our Mexican authorities and our Mexican government has to do the job. And if we want to stop this, they should start by implementing the same protocols that we implement through crossing cattle from Mexico to the U.S. to cross cattle from Central America to Mexico, or just simply shut down that border for a little while until things start getting a little, calmer, or until you start implementing protocols, because we don't want to fall into the same mistakes that we've been falling, in the past. So I think that they need to accelerate 100% all the fly production plants. I personally went over to Washington to work and to check on dynamic aviation, which are the planes that they use to disperse the fly all over. These guys are ready. It's just a matter of supplying the flies, and they're ready to take it all over, which they started, but not what we need to really eradicate. This is going to take a little while. It's not going to be a fast deal for sure. But I really wish that, like I said, that we could start immediately with cattle for sports purposes and horses as well, because that's going to help them, get a better feeling on what's going on at the ports, and that's going to help them, to create that confidence on how our authorities and the authorities on the U.S. are working together, and that's what I see. And I really think that they have to open the border sometime soon. This cannot continue the same way, because at the very end, the screwworm crossed, and it crossed, in different ways. It didn't cross for cattle. So why do you keep on hurting that economy if it just didn't cross for cattle?
Miguel, as someone who has been so successful in keeping all this under control with your protocols in Chihuahua, what would you say right now to people in Texas? Is it pay attention, but you don't need to panic? Is it, I see some veterinarians going on and saying, hey, for example, ivermectin, just stick to your regular protocols on that. That's not going to impact. I mean, people that think they can just go, deworming and it's going to be fine or whatever, that's not necessarily going to be any help. What would you say to a rancher in Texas right now?
Well, first of all, I would like to express to them, that as the state of Chihuahua, and I cannot speak for all Mexico, but I'm going to speak, about the state of Chihuahua. And we have a lot of relation with Texas, economically speaking, not only through cattle. I mean, Chihuahua is a very productive state, also in the automotive industry, in the aerospace industry, medical devices. So we are, we're very partnered with Texas in many ways. But what I could tell to the Texans is that this deal has affected the state of Chihuahua in huge ways. And we, as the private sector, we're working directly with our authorities, with our governor, with our municipalities, with our borders of the state to continue on keeping Chihuahua safe and clean out of screwworm. So I just want to send that sense of confidence that at least with the productive state of Chihuahua and the state of Sonora, because I can also speak for them because they're doing exactly the same job as we're doing, and there's 0 cases in those states. And I would just say that even though I'm also a cattle producer, but I know that a lot of businesses depend on us. And even though that only a few we could do very good right now with cattle prices and everything, at the very end, there's a lot of people that depend on us. So we need to find ways of collaborating through the private sectors with our state governments, and also helping our federal agencies and our federal institutions, to implement all the necessary protocols in our areas. And I'm pretty sure that if we do this, good things are going to come up, and we're going to be able to continue working together, and we're going to be able to, to grow the industry. And we need to find ways also to increase the number of heifers of mama cows in the U.S. And like I said, we've been implementing the best genetics here in Mexico, and you're going to find the best Angus, the best Herefords, the best limousines. I mean, we just have the best genetics as well, and we have the best traceability program in the whole country. And actually, I can honestly tell you that there's not one state in the U.S. that has such a strict traceability program of every single calf that we have in our ranches, like the state of Chihuahua. So that being said, there's a lot that we can work together. So I would urge them to, all of us, sit down on the same table, come up with great decisions, with great projects, work together, and get things going. Because there's just no reason to keep it close if at the very end it didn't cross through cattle.
On the horse end, I think Las Tunas Performance Horses has historically exported 95% of your horses to the United States. Is that correct? So now, today's hot topic is seeing, I've seen a couple so far, Carly Otero, Trisha Aldridge saying, hey, if anybody, I might need a horse for Calgary. So on the horse end, what they've said so far publicly is that perhaps the Canadian border would be closed to horses from Texas. Do you guys know anything about that?
Well, no, not really. We just recently heard about the closing, and I know that this is going to affect, a lot of competitors and a lot of performers in a big way. Particularly, it's going to affect, the Calgary Stampede Rodeo, and hopefully there's going to be something that can be done. But yeah, and I got to tell you, horses even go through even more strict protocol to cross, because horses need to be tested before they get to the quarantine area in the border. Once they're in the quarantine area, it's a closed area, with all the protocols, implemented by the authorities. And the horses stay there for 8 full days. And then they get tested again before they cross. and they get inspected again before they cross. They get bathed again. So once they cross, they've been inspected for 8 full days right there.
Right.
So it's even more strict protocol than what the cattle protocol is. So there's just no reason to keep on.
This whole situation seems to change daily. But when I think of the Calgary Stampede, I'm like, how many runs can Bird's horse Peso take, right? Or,
incredible.
His phone's got to be blowing up right now more than usual. I just don't know. But by the same token, this could all change again in the next.
Well, that's exactly the same feeling that we got when the border got shut down for us. That's exactly a feeling that we had. Imagine myself right now here, just at the ranch. I have over 35 horses right now that are ready to go and participate in futurities in the U.S., and I cannot cross them. I have them right here sitting down, just training here in Mexico, and I'm not being able to take, the full potential out of those horses because of this deal. Can you imagine how frustrated we are? And that's just me. There's a lot of people, that are trying to make a difference in the industry, and they're trying to do good things for the industry as well. But they just cannot move forward because I don't think that the authorities have placed their eyes on the sports side of things and how we collaborate together so much. And rodeo is one thing, but jumpers is a big thing. Dressage is a big thing. Polo is a big thing that they just cannot move their horses.
Especially having proven that the problem is not coming from Chihuahua.
Exactly right. And if the horses are in the state of Chihuahua, they didn't come from anywhere else. If the cattle's from Chihuahua and we can prove that it was born, bred, raised here in Chihuahua, and there's no screwworm in Chihuahua, why do you keep it close? It's like, and I always try to give this example that what we're seeing in Chihuahua and we feel affected is because at the beginning, obviously the screwworm started coming up, on the Pacific side, and then on the Gulf side, and then it started coming up, and then it went all the way through Texas, through Tamaulipas, and it went through through very humid areas. But at the beginning, we say, why are we being blamed in the state or being punished in the state of Chihuahua for something that happened south, in the Chiapas border or down there? It's like blaming, it's like blaming New York for what happened in California. It's that far away. And at the very end, it affected everybody.
Well, the Calgary Stampede, the Canadian government, they don't take a whole lot of risks. And the Stampede Committee does a good job. But, when COVID came, the U.S. government made everybody take a shot. So maybe they'll make everybody grow some sterile flies or something. But I think you guys were right in the path of that screwworm coming north. And you guys took a right hook to the mouth financially. And I think the point that he's making, and maybe you people out there, spinners should post this. There are currently no cases of screwworm in Chihuahua and surrounding states, some of our biggest trading partners. And I think the reality is, I don't think the federal government in the U.S. cares about roping, really. I don't think they care that much about you in Chihuahua. I think that what they really care about is kind of a broad level containment of something that they think could impact their big money donors. But the truth is, this is hurting real people, real families, specifically south of the border. And if you want to know the truth, you listen to No Spin Rodeo. And hopefully you learned something today. And that is that just like Miguel said, it got here. It didn't get here from cattle crossing from Chihuahua. It got here from dogs. And by the way, there's 15 million wild hogs that can be contaminated. And there's who knows how many flies that, they don't check the flies' passports when they're crossing the border. They just cross. I mean, there's just a lot of morons out there that are taking the wrong approach to something. Now, in fairness, I don't want to sound like the guy that's sitting there criticizing everybody because I don't know all the details, because I'm sure that this is a lot more complicated and there's a lot more to this than I'm going to stand up here and pretend. But like always, have we applied common sense, rolled up our sleeves and come up with solutions to save our industry, your people, your industry? And for me right now, where I'm sitting, it doesn't look like we've taken common sense solutions and applied them. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And you know what? I just want to send this message out there by saying that from the private sector and as part of the Livestock Association for the state of Chihuahua as a board member, we're always open to work on solutions. There's always ways to work together and make things happen, because this thing is going to keep on going and it's not going to stop very easy. But we need to find ways to eradicate it and to come up with a long-term plan, midterm, long-term plan all together, but to continue on working. We need to continue, on giving our people the best quality of life possible. We need to continue on creating jobs, to create wealth. And the best thing to do that is by communicating and implementing whatever we need to implement, but together. This is not only one-way thing. It's a two-way deal. And now it became a two-way deal. And we're open. We're always willing to sit down on the table from the Livestock Association and Alvaro Bustillo, the president of the Livestock Association, which is my cousin. And I have a bunch of friends that are great producers of cattle here that are also members. Let's sit down. Let's figure it out, guys. I mean, we need to come with solutions, and we need to come, on the right protocols. Let's meet at the border and let's see what we can do together and make things happen. Because
do you think that's going to happen?
I wish. I really wish it could happen. I don't see why not. Happen. If they're smart, it's going to happen. And we're going to find ways also. We're going to find also ways to cross heifers without spading them to increase, the census of mama cows over in the U.S. Because right now it's very, very low. I think it's the lowest that it's been in the last 70 years. So how do we increase that? The northern producers like Chihuahua and Sonora, we can help you with that. For sure.
You're talking about the beef. You're talking about the beef cows, because if we bring M-branded heifers over here, it sounds to me like, from what you said earlier, it's the rugged environment. It's the fact that they eat rocks.
We're talking about beef.
I mean, you're talking about the beef cattle. Those M-branded cattle, the environment that they're in. I mean, like you said, 5 inches of rain in a year. They learn how to survive on literally nothing, and then they come here and survive.
5 inches in 3 years. In 3 or 4 years.
You had to import some hay, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It's expensive. Well, that's why cattle is becoming also very expensive. So, if we're smart and we get to work together like associations, institutionally speaking, we can find ways to make things happen. And I'm talking about beef cattle and definitely the rodeo cattle, the corriente cattle, and the horses. That's a low-hanging fruit. It's a thing that we can do immediately. It's just a matter of will, to be honest. Leave the political things aside, focus on technicalities, and let's work together. And please pay attention to our sport and to rodeo that is hurting bad because there's no good cattle. And there's a lot of horses that are ready to go and being trained, and they're also going to be creating a lot of jobs. And it's better for our industry for sure.
You have no bigger cheerleader than me, and the competitive integrity of our sport is at stake. Also, we need more fresh cattle.
Exactly, Kendra. And you know what? Like I said, it's incredible how we're doing all the right stuff, creating the best events out there, getting all the pros all together, with the best people, and then they get to rope that, cattle. I was going to say a word, but let's just say bad.
Well, let me ask you something. They've got, do you think if private, I don't know. I don't have high hopes that it sounds like that they're actually going to contain this screwworm issue quickly. I also don't have high hopes that they're going to sit down and come up with solutions, because I don't think that this is impacting the right people to make them make the changes. I hope I'm wrong, but you know what? All you no spinners and you listeners out there, you can help because you heard the truth on this podcast. Okay. Now, one more quick question, Miguel. There, on both sides of the border, both north and south, there's bad actors. There's people that mess things up. Do you think that there's enough control on your side of the border to confidently say that we can trust the situation? And I'm saying both sides. I mean, on our side, I think the problem is we've got people that don't care and are up way north of Texas and worrying about other stuff in the world and not paying attention to this particular issue. But do you think you got that both sides of the border have enough trust and control in both sides that we can find a solution for this?
Obviously, like you said, there's on both sides, there's good people, there's bad people. Right? But
yep.
I'm gonna say that, and I'm gonna speak about the state of Chihuahua, where we have most of our influence. I can honestly tell you that you can trust us. I mean, all the people that are involved are good people. We're very concerned, and we are deeply, deeply involved in the industry. And there's a lot of people that, just like me, I'm invested not only in Mexico, I'm also very invested in the U.S., and I know the feeling on both sides. So I can honestly tell you that the people that we have here that are working directly on this deal are good people, are good people. And we've been trying to to avoid exactly that, all that bad people, all that people that are corrupt and doing corruptive practices with cattle in other states. You're not welcome here. There's no room for you here in the state of Chihuahua. So I can honestly tell you that when it comes to the state, they can trust us.
Well, you can trust most of the Texans. California or Kendra may disagree. You can trust most of the Texans, but you can't trust the politicians if they're not, and that's the problem. You just can't. You can't trust that they'll make the right decision.
You know what, Tommy Joe? You just hit the nail right there, because when we've traveled to Washington and to some institutions and, trying to make things, to socialize these things, it's incredible the lack of knowledge of a lot of people. Some people, even at the highest levels, they don't really understand what's going on here. They didn't even understand, all the efforts that were done in two states that are clean of screwworm, 100% clean. There was just a lack of knowledge on all the screwworm deal. And when we went and presented it, they said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know that." I was like, "Oh my!"
It's because it's got to affect them, right? It's got to affect them.
Right.
You don't get people in power don't move till it hits their pocketbook or their family, and that's just the reality. That's the reality of the way the world works, and the world works on a dollar. And if the dollar's if you're not being affected by it, and you're in a position of power, then you go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know anything about it." Well, the reason you didn't know anything about it is because you didn't do any research, because you don't care. You don't care.
Right.
And there's millions of families in your neighborhood that literally are going broke and selling their generational herds of cattle. And there's a whole industry in the United States that is a part of our legendary core that is being negatively affected. And all we're asking for is for the powers to be. Miguel and his team at Chihuahua are reaching across saying, let's sit down and work together. All I'm asking as a U.S. citizen is the powers that be listen to what we're saying, sit down with them. If you don't know what you're talking about, learn something, and let's apply common sense to a real problem. There's no doubt this is an issue, right? But we have to work together. We have to roll up our sleeves, come up with common sense answers. You can inspect the cattle and they go on. If they have no sign of screwworms on them, then they're not packing the screwworm. You should be worried about the hogs that are crossing the border, or the whitetail, or the flies, or everything else, and get more sterile flies out. Why'd you stop the sterile fly thing? Why? Because you don't care.
Right.
All right. I'm sorry.
Right.
Kendra, back to you. Maybe you'll be more nice.
You're absolutely right, Tommy Joe. And Kendra knows about how much we've been talking about, how it's been affecting a lot of producers. Us, let's say, us, I'm going to speak about us at the Old West fraternities that we're part of as Las Tunas. And, I've got great partners right there. They're incredible people, and we're working hard to make a difference in the industry, to come up with the greatest events possible, with the greatest payouts possible. And I'm going to speak about my main personal objective is I got to find ways to continue on, creating jobs, continue on making sure that our people have a better quality of life, and continue on making a difference on the industry. We've got, we took this hard, but I think that now with all that's happening, it's time to sit down and find solutions together.
Well, Kendra, final word?
I guess I feel very grateful because I know a lot of ropers these days, they can't afford to even have practice steers, back in the day when they would maybe have, a few Mexicans to rope and they might have 5 Jersey steers right at the moment. And so I just hope those days can come back. And I feel like I know a lot of people at every level and every corner of our industry who feel pretty helpless to do anything about what's going on with this whole situation and the lack of good cattle. Apparently we were spoiled most of our lifetimes before now, but now everybody realizes. I just hope it can be brought back. But what I would say to you, Miguel, is I think there are a lot of people, a lot of ropers, bulldoggers too, who feel helpless because they wouldn't know what to do as far as to take action. So the industry, people who don't even know you are grateful.
Thank you.
For you to be willing to take on this fight, because it's a hell of a fight, and there's a lot of our future at stake right here. That's not being dramatic. Right. That's just being honest. So thank you for going to Washington, D.C., and for working with people and for doing an honorable job of trying to negotiate us back into business.
Oh, well, thank you, Kendra. And I got to say something, and I just wish the same. I just wish that we can go back to, things were, and I don't feel right having to sell steers over $2,000, over $2,400. It's just not right for the industry. We need to continue on, making things periodically like we were doing it, so steers can go back, to where they were. It's just outrageous. It's just not good for the industry. I mean, even though right now we're going to have to sell, obviously, because they've cost us 2 years of having steers shut down. They're going to be expensive, but that's not the right thing. That's not what we should be doing for the industry. We need to be fair to the industry. And I'm not talking only about steers. I'm talking about everything. Let's just keep it competitive. Let's just keep it safe, and let's keep it going. Because if we increase so much, then the only thing that is going to happen is that it's going to scare people away. And that's not what we want.
Right. Well, and besides people who can't afford the cattle, whether it's a rodeo or it's a whatever, a lot of mom and pop, you talk about some of the small outfits in Chihuahua going out of business that were raising horn cattle before. A lot of mom and pop jackpot team rope rings here have gone out of business too, at least temporarily. So we all hope and pray that can be restored as this whole thing is hopefully resolved sooner than later.
I really hope so. And like I said, this is just one thing out of many that we can do together. And I mean, the industry has my full commitment. I love the industry. I love the people in it. Everybody has received us with open arms. And to be honest, for me, as being Mexican and being so invested in the U.S., in the industry, through horses and through cattle, and the way that people have received Las Tunas and myself, it's really, you have my full commitment, and I'm going to make sure that I keep on doing, what I have to do for us to become, more competitive and try to do things right. So thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. For me, it's a real honor to be part of this. It's a real honor to participate. And I'm going to say something that we spoke about, how in every country there's good people and bad people. But in this industry, the best thing that we have is the people. It's incredible. It's incredible, the friends, the love, and the camaraderie that we have in this industry like nowhere else. So let's keep on working together, and nothing's going to stop us.
Well, very well said. If you haven't figured this out yet, Michael Guerrero is buttoned up, sharp, believes he's a cowboy. He's a cowboy, folks. Just like us, a very accomplished rancher, horseman, cattle producer, big ranch in Chihuahua, stallion partner, and really one of the leading rope and industry figures. And we are so honored to get your side of this story. And for those of you that are out there, do what you can to help push your representatives and stuff to sit down and let's figure out a solution, because there's a lot of mouths of babies. There's a lot of people that are dependent on this, and we need the no spinners out there to go to work because we need to keep our industry going. God bless you, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kendra.
Thank you,
and this has been episode 106 of No Spin Rodeo. You guys be blessed out there, and let's start roping again. Let's get those cattle moving and get the flies dead. How about that?
How about that?
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Thank you from the bottom of our heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport.